So hi everyone, my name is Stacy Sacco. I'm the director of the UNM Small Business Institute and a teacher in entrepreneurial studies at Anderson School of Management. Excited today to talk to New Mexico Piñon Coffee Company as part of the ABQ Iconic series. Talk about some practical information about how to start and grow a business. But first up, we're going to show you an origins film about the company and how they got started. Then we're going to re-rendezvous with Drake and Matt, who are going to tell us some of the day-to-day about the business. So excited to be here, and thank you to Moji Cinema for putting this together for us. Thank you.
I love coffee because I think it is almost a universal truth amongst people. It's the way that people start their day. It's a way to bring a sense of community to people, and it's something that we can all come together over. There's no political divisions, there's no religious divisions. I don't think there's another product out there that has that same type of impact as much as coffee does. New Mexico Piñon Coffee was founded in 1994. The original owner was a gentleman by the name of Jim Franco. He came from New Jersey, learned how to roast coffee from a local roaster. He wanted to start a coffee and bookstore.
He was looking for a coffee to brew and serve at his bookstore and just wasn't happy with anything that was currently on the market. So he bought a 15-pound peanut roaster.
Roasted out of the back of his 1950s red pickup truck, along with his dog Decaf, down by one of the UNM bookstores.
He played with a few different flavor blends, a few different coffee bean blends, and then at one point he made the decision to just throw some roasted piñon nuts in his roasted coffee.
He would source piñon through local Native Americans that would harvest it on their tribal lands. They would come into Albuquerque, sell it out of the back of their pickup truck. The whole idea was to give that coffee a sense of place and a unique flavor.
Won some awards at state fairs. We got mentioned by the New York Times as one of the top gourmet food companies in America.
He eventually sold the company and moved out of town. The second owner was a gentleman by the name of Stephen Wolf, who continued to drive things forward, picked up some national accounts with Trader Joe's, continued to build the brand and the presence locally within the state. He eventually sold to the third and current ownership group, which is the Bassett family, in 2008. The company really started to see monumental growth. At the end of 2017, Trader Joe's moved forward with a new grocery plan. They wanted to make sure that everything was a Trader Joe's brand product on their shelves. And as they redid the coffee and tea category, our product was one that hit the editing floor. It caused all of us to really pause and think outside the box of what we've been doing to this point to ensure that we can continue to grow and thrive. We had to be willing to innovate. We had to be willing to think about new products. How do we bring those to the market? How does that diversify our revenue streams? How do we take our normal roadshow that we would do in these stores and put it in a digital platform? We looked at that as an opportunity instead of a detriment. We saw that we not only could continue to thrive, but we really grew the product through the ability to put more time and develop other relationships and really saturating our local market.
As we grew, we came more and more under the watch of the FDA. The FDA doesn't like what they call wild harvested ingredients.
One of the biggest implications of that was we were no longer able to co-roast natural piñon nuts with our coffee because there was no lot traceability. We had to work with several flavor producers to develop a proprietary all-natural piñon flavoring that we could coat the coffee with.
Almost all other flavored coffees in the entire country are flavored with artificial ingredients or a mixture of natural and artificial ingredients. We felt that it was a worthwhile investment, and it's definitely been good and helped us to continue growing.
We really are still a very homegrown company. Everyone who works here is from New Mexico and really loves it and really cares about what we do and our products.
When we have New Mexico on our label, I feel that we have an obligation to employ a workforce that is diverse and represents the state and the community where we come from.
It feels like home and it feels like New Mexico. How unique is that, right? You don't get that from most places, and that's really fun to be a part of a company that is gonna put New Mexico more on the map, which I think is amazing.
Thank you. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the film. We're now going to talk with Matt and Drake, senior leaders from New Mexico Piñon Coffee Company, about the business and get some tips and ideas about how it works, how it comes together. So you might want to do something similar. You don't need any competition, right? But
we don't need any competition.
Okay, so no coffee companies. So in any case, one of the questions I had for you, because I did do some work on looking at your website, and it looks like this is a different kind of a company than I think some of the companies they're introducing, where they started it and then grew it. You guys bought into a company that was already existing, and then you've evolved from there. So tell us a little bit about that process. How did you decide to pick that company? What compelled you to buy them or take over the company and then be part of it to grow it? Because that's different than just starting up from nothing and creating a business plan and going out to the county clerk or city clerk and getting a license.
Sure.
You got to step into it. So
yeah, and really the process was started by the Bassett family in 2009. They moved into Albuquerque and were looking for a business opportunity that kind of segued with their past experiences as franchise owners of McDonald's Corporation. And they came across a coffee company. They felt that it had the best long-term potential for them to be successful with. And so, really over the next, 11 to 12 years to where we're at today, the road that they traveled down was very divergent, I think, from where they thought they were going to get into and where the reality of it was. But over a long period of years, they, felt that assimilation, I guess, with the business and found their niche and found ways to continue to grow the company from what it was in its humble beginnings.
So I'd be curious, and I want to talk to you a little bit about marketing in a minute, about social media and how that works. Because a lot of people think, you just do a Facebook page and you've got everything settled. No, there's usually a lot more to it. It's strategy.
Yes.
And Facebook's a part of a toolbox. So, but from your point of view, I was curious. We talked about that earlier. A lot of companies have coffee, then are adding food. Others have food and are adding coffee. Coffee still seems to be the center of that. But for you, how has that worked in terms of where have you added? I know you have a roaster, and you've got the coffee company, you have purchases online. Where is the real operations for you? You have one center and then you centralize that piece and then decentralize the retail, right?
Yeah, and I think that really the base of what we do is in the roastery. That is where, the company really started. That has been our outward-facing brand was really developed around packaged coffee. That in turn led to the ability to have that iconic brand that was visible on store shelves. People recognize the red bag, the truck, the emblem that we see today, and that allowed us to go out and start a coffee house concept. I think that was one of the things that really gave us a leg up on other entrepreneurs in the field that were trying to get things established from the ground up, so to speak. It's really propelled us to where we're at today. And I think those different facets of their business, predominantly our online presence, really all centered around that brand and the packaged coffee that has been, an evolving process now for over 25 years.
Right. So I'd be curious as far as the operations, though, again, when you looked at the company, you had to come in and did you buy in or did they hire you? How does that work in case I wanted to do something similar? Do I look at a company here in town and say, oh, I want to buy the franchise, or do I talk to them about partnering? How did that come together in terms of the ownership?
The ownership angle, again, for the Bassetts, they were able to take the small business administration route. They had a background in food service operations. There was a definite correlation of some of their experiences that they had prior to the coffee company. And, that was a good marriage, I guess, of their background, their talents with what the Small Business Administration wanted to see in terms of a purchase.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing that when you look at going down an SBA route, the lenders are always going to want to see, do you have relevant experience? Is this going to be something that we're going to invest in you as a person or as a group of investors? Is it going to be an entirely new avenue that you're going down? Are you coming out of, nuclear medicine and you decide you don't want to do that anymore, but you want to open up a coffee roastery? Chances are you're going to be looking at an uphill battle.
Right.
I think if you're within that same field, you have that opportunity to find those lenders out there to back you as you go down that entrepreneurial road with a new adventure with that.
It's funny, I worked, I've taught at UNM. I'll have a student show up and say, well, I want to start a coffee truck, or not coffee truck, but a food truck. And
Sure.
I'm like, have you ever worked at a restaurant? No. Do you know what that's going to entail? What kind of foods, menus, all this? They don't know anything, but it just sounded cool.
It's romantic.
Yeah, it sounds sexy. I'm going to start this food truck. I'm thinking, probably go work somewhere else before you try this, just to get a sense of that. So I guess in a way, for both of you, did you work in the retail or work in coffee at all before, or that all of a sudden had this appeal to you? Or was it there was this cool opportunity? I'm just trying to get to, if somebody in town wanted to do, kind of repeat what you've done, how did they get there? What does it take to make that decision?
For me, I did work retail. I was a retail manager before. And I also did a little bit of marketing in that role and went to school for business and marketing. I've always been really passionate about coffee. So when I moved up to Albuquerque and saw that there was a marketing opportunity at a coffee company, it's destiny. So I applied and I got the job and was able to help the previous marketing manager build up the brand. And then when she left, I kind of stepped into that role and really think that I've helped to continue to develop the brand and push us out to new markets and tackle some of the challenges that have come up in the last several years.
So I know since you're retail, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, or challenges with a lot of companies is having somebody that's at that door when you walk in or at the counter that embodies what it is your values. Mm-hmm. So how do you go about hiring people? Do you have a process for that? Are you hiring for talent or hiring for attitude or hiring? What do you do to get those kind of people on that mirror the New Mexico Piñon Coffee attitude or values?
I think that, it's hiring is always a challenge because you have to identify those qualities that you're looking for in those candidates. And the biggest thing, I think you hire for those intangibles that you cannot train in someone. So whether it's, their personality, their ease of talking to people in a customer facing role, those are skills that are hard to find. And I can train anybody that we hire what the build is on building a 12-ounce latte or a 24-ounce iced latte, how to place an order, how to write a schedule. But those intangibles, work ethic, attitude, appearance, those things that we want to, represent the company, those are the things that we want to go out and seek out in our talent pool and really latch on and keep them there with us.
And for any of you that have been to Pinyon, when you go in, you get treated fabulously. I tell you, it's not, the coffee's fabulous, but those people at the counter are very much, in tune with. They're paying attention. They ask you questions. What are you looking for? They do a good job of cross-selling. Must be that marketing going on. You did your job. So, and I worked at McDonald's and some of that, and they really do put you through a lot of training. So I assume you have a fairly rigorous training program for new employees too, to keep everybody on the same page.
Definitely. And I think that the biggest thing in a food service operation is quality and consistency. So, you have to, before you turn them loose on the floor, so to speak, ensure that they fully understand the recipes of what they're building, why they're, being asked to do things consistently. You don't go to Sao Paulo and get a Big Mac that's different than the one you would get in Orange County.
Right.
It is what it is wherever you go. And that's the same component that we want to have in coffee. And if you look at some of the comp set out there in the coffee world, Starbucks is a great example of doing things and doing it that right way, so that whether you're in Boston or in Seattle, when you walk up to that counter and you order your drink just the way you like it specifically, it is going to taste exactly the same as it is 2,500 miles apart from your home store.
So I'd love to ask some questions, because I have more of a marketing background than a CEO background. I get what you have to deal with, because whatever happens that day, you got to deal with
Sure.
it. You're Captain Kirk. Klingons are coming, you got to handle it. But for you, it's probably thinking through, what's our customers like about us compared to other coffee shops or other places where you can have foods or whatever. So you've got to stand out. So I'd be curious, how do you, and I know you have different ways to sell now. We were talking earlier, I could get Grubhub to drop off my coffee. Oh my God, what happened? This is crazy. So what are the ways you sell now? And I know you have the B2C, which is selling to consumers, but you also have some kind of wholesale sales. Can you talk a little bit about those? And then how do you sell to them? Is it more sales or marketing? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So our B2C sales are mostly marketing. We do a lot of digital marketing, a lot of social media, email. We also run television commercials. We do some print marketing. We try to kind of capture a pretty complete marketing mix at any given time. For the wholesale stuff, most of that is outward sales. We have a director of sales who contacts businesses and distributors and other wholesalers to promote our coffee. And she uses marketing tactics as well, and marketing information. We always make sure to have a complete set of sell sheets for all of our products. So when she gets in contact with another business who's looking to add coffee, whether or not they're a grocery store or a cafe or a restaurant, she can give them all of the information that she needs that's prepared by us to help them make a decision that will be the best for their business.
So just so you know, our family's a big fan of your coffee, but it was interesting when I mentioned to my wife I'm going to meet with you folks. She had a drawer full of your coffee, and there were a couple were empty, but there was a couple still left that she had gotten at a conference. So you must do, I guess, what do you call it? It's not third party where you're putting their label on it. You're selling it as a promotion item through a conference or giving it to some group that especially if they have visitors coming to Albuquerque, you're part of our iconic Albuquerque. You're part of our image, especially Pinyon. I know we talked about that earlier. Does anybody else sell Pinyon coffee in this country, or you're kind of it, right?
There's a couple that are doing a Pinyon flavored coffee, and I would like to say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But it's definitely at the very least a regional thing. Right. And we see that in the coffee world with chicory coffee. Down in the deep South, Louisiana, Mississippi, chicory coffee has been something that's been around for generations, and it's definitely a regional type of thing. But if you bring somebody from back east and they've never tasted it, they've never heard about it, it's going to be an educational process for them.
Right. So the other question for you is about your social media. I know a lot of folks, when they start a business, they need a website. So, okay, they do whatever. I worked with Wix because I didn't know how to do it, so my wife did it. But that was helpful. But your website's at a whole nother level. So do you hire somebody out to do that, or do you manage the website? Or did you create it?
I did not create this website. It's kind of a little bit of both. We do have an outside company who did the construction and the design and the overall upkeep of web development. But in terms of adding new products and making sure that all of the photography and stuff, that's all taken care of in-house, either by me or by my marketing coordinator. A website is, honestly, it's 2021. You can't be a business and not have a website.
Right.
It's an absolute essential. And there's a ton of really easy tools that you can use to create a website. Our website used to be a WordPress site until we hit a point where it's like we have way too much traffic for this. And that's when we turned to our company that currently does
so you created your own customized website.
Yes,
their
absolutely.
tools.
Yep.
But then in terms of the marketing, I would guess that you're doing a lot of Facebook marketing because it's inexpensive. If you start buying ads on radio and TV, those actually aren't that expensive. But overall, it starts with who's your customer and what are they looking at. So are they going on Facebook quite a bit? Then you certainly want to be there. Do you use Instagram and any of these other software programs? I'd be curious. What works best? What do you work with and what works best?
We are on a pretty wide variety of social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube.
Oh, you're out there.
LinkedIn.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we have a pretty big portfolio of social media that we do.
Right.
Facebook and Instagram are definitely our largest audiences. And Instagram actually just passed Facebook in terms of analytics for us for the first time ever about mid last year. It's free. So it's, again, one of those essentials that you need to do. And in terms of if you don't want to spend any money, I think Instagram is the way to go going forward. We have a lot of good luck with paid ads on Facebook and on Instagram, but in general, we have been seeing a lot better engagement on Instagram overall.
I would bet a lot of what happens for you too is that you have a fan group. I don't know which fan, that's not fan club, but you have maybe you call them, what do you call them?
Coffee groupies.
Coffee groupies. So that they find you or they hear about you. I'd heard about you through a friend who wanted to meet for coffee. She goes, "Oh, you got to meet me at Pinyon." And I'm like, which one? Well, it was the one on Osuna or whatever. And fell in love. I mean, immediately I'm like, I get it. Because she'd always go there. I'm like, where are you going? I'm going to this Pinyon thing. I'm like, what is that? So I finally went with her, and then it was, it sells itself. Sorry, you don't need to hire him. Just kidding.
Well, the best way to get anybody to fall in love with your product is to get it in their hands.
Right, get them to try it.
And that's why we, like you were saying earlier, we do send out coffee for free to conferences, to, some social media influencers, to, when there's going to be a big event and there's people from out of town or out of state, we always want to be involved in that so that we can have our coffee included in a gift bag or a giveaway so they can take it home.
I think that's how my wife got it. It was through all these gift bags.
Finals week at UNM handed out nitro. We've done advertising in the pit. We've taken trash can, size containers full of frac packs.
Well, I've seen your stuff at the local games. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a big UNM, so I get it.
I don't think we've put them in a cannon yet and shot them out.
Not yet, but we tried to, but the problem with that is the bags kept exploding. So.
Yeah.
That's not,
raining coffee grounds is
Yeah.
probably not a good marketing tactic.
So really your marketing is more social media, it sounds like, than other types of marketing.
For the most part, we do focus on social media. It's a great way for us to reach a huge audience without having to spend the kind of money that we would spend on radio or TV. I'm also kind of a numbers person, so I really like to be able to look at the analytics and see, well, this post got this many engagements and this ad led to this many purchases. And that sort of tracking is really useful for me in order to be able to change our strategy.
Oh, no, you're the right marketer. I've done marketing, and every time I've done something, it's you get into the creative side. Oh, we're going to have this clever ad. But really, marketing's numbers, more so than anybody realizes. It's math. And it's research, and it's thinking through what's working, what's not. And then, because you're spending the money.
Yes.
And he's going to ask you, what's the results of this money? I can see that meeting every week.
ROI, baby.
Yeah, what's your ROI on that one? So back to that side of it. how many stores do you have, and how does that work? And where are you taking that? What's next? Can you expand outside of Albuquerque? Is that part of where you're going? Or is it more internal to have more business, like switch to drive up or something?
I think it depends on which facet of the company you're talking about. If we're talking about the packaged coffee end of things, I think that our biggest focus right now, and it has been for several years, is really putting a fence around, our state where we don't have to educate people about what is Pinyon, what is Biscochito, and they are products that will inherently sell themselves. And we've done a really good job with that. We've partnered with our local distribution company to that angle. We've got people that are, expats from New Mexico that go out into different areas of the country and, quite frankly, sometimes of the world. And they look for a brand that gives them a sense of home.
Right.
And I think that in turn has really helped to drive the e-commerce side of what we do. And then on the coffee house side of things, I think our focus has been, continually, let's refine the product and the process that we're selling in the coffee houses themselves. And once we kind of felt that we had our arms around that, well, now we can look at expansion. Now we can look at opening, a second store, a third store. And I think we're at that point of being comfortable enough with that side of the business, knowing what we need to do, that we're now in that next phase of growth where we want to look within the next 24 to 36 months of doubling the number of coffee house locations that are out there. Now that the brand is established and it's kind of created its own trajectory in terms of what's logical in terms of growth for us.
I was going to say, I'm sure you guys know this, but you are really New Mexico. It's not just coffee. You really represent us. I know Jesse Heron and the trolley started that ABQ box, and you're in that box. I buy those. So I buy your coffee there. But it's about you're conveying a message of and a flavor that's related to our culture here. So you're part of our brand just as much as the other side of that. So how do you maintain the brand quality? Do you have what's your messaging to keep that brand alive in a way? Is it? I know you have the symbol.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, I have my little. This is the mayor's. The mayor has a specific lapel pin, so I bought one of his. He doesn't know that, but he wouldn't. But for you, how do you maintain that brand image? I'm sure part of it's quality. And then and the operation side is the flavor has to be consistent. Mm-hmm. So there's some aspects of having a process around all that. But for you, you've got a different issue or challenge in terms of maintaining a certain look and everything's got a tie, I would imagine.
Yeah. So like you said, a huge part of it is the quality of the coffee. That's the most important thing to everybody, is how good everything tastes and making sure that everything tastes consistently delicious every time you brew up a cup.
Right.
But in terms of the imaging, we do have to be very specific about the fonts that we use, the colors that we use, the way that we portray the brand in a way that reflects our core values and makes sense to us. Anytime we want to do a change in packaging or a change in the way that we're representing ourselves online, we take a look at that and make sure that it's going to make sense internally and to our customer base. And it's not going to be a shock that this aesthetic is really neat, so we're going to change the way that it looks to be like that, even though it's going to go out of style in 6 months, because that's how the internet works.
Right.
So we have to take a really critical eye to everything that we do to make sure that it has that sort of longevity and is something that we can look back on when we make changes.
So how do you stay in touch with your customers? Do you do surveys, or when anybody comes in, you ask them questions or answer a survey or follow up? How do you stay in touch?
We're super open. We have multiple ways that people can contact us on our website. We are very responsive when it comes to social media. People send us questions and concerns all the time on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all over the place. So
I looked on Yelp. You guys have huge high scores. You're winning that one. That's great.
Yeah, we try very hard to keep a good handle on all that stuff. Yeah. And anytime we see anything pop up, if there's a question or a concern, we try and make sure that we're addressing that as quickly as possible.
Right.
And we do also, people will send replies to our email newsletters, and we always make sure that we're very responsive to those as well.
So what do you call your customers? You said coffee groupies. Don't tell them.
I better be careful with that one.
We actually don't really have a name that we necessarily use for our customers. Our audience, our fans.
They're your fans.
Yeah, they're our fans, and
you don't need names.
Yeah,
it's just fun.
I know that we've thrown around the idea of like Pinyon pals and that kind of thing when we're feeling especially punny.
I know when I lived in California, Nordstrom's had Nordies, and there was always this thing in it. I thought it was like, well, I'm not a Nord. I love Nordstrom's, but don't give me a name. So, but for you guys, yeah, I know you have a huge fan and a following, so that's part of it. So in a day-to-day, what's a day-to-day look like for each of you in owning a business? I'd be curious, because if somebody's going to start one, I know a lot of my students in particular will think, oh, I'm going to start this food truck and it's going to be 6 hours a day. I'm going to make $1 million.
Well, power to you.
Yeah.
Go get them, Tiger.
It's probably 24/7 in some ways.
It definitely is. There's the day-to-day office hour, I guess you would say, but you're always having to think about things, research things, look at comp sets. Basically every facet of what you do. If you're out and about on the weekend, you're driving around and going to different places, trying different coffees. Anything that you can do to further educate yourself on
so
the
you're
products,
a lifelong learner in a way.
You have to be.
Right.
I think once for any entrepreneur, if you are done learning, you might as well just throw in the towel, because things are always evolving and always changing. So, again, on the day to day, you're doing things, signing checks, doing AP runs and looking, at the financial status. How is your operation, especially in the roastery? How are we doing? Where are we at in terms of supply chain? Are we able to, fulfill the orders in the pipeline? Are there any threats that we need to identify? In our current COVID state of affairs, supply chain is a huge thing that 18 months ago we didn't have to really think about. It was second nature. You place a PO, you have a specified time frame of when those things arrive. In this day and age, you have to be much more on top of that. But you're dealing with questions from your staff, whether it's a barista that's closing up and, how do I set the alarm? It's day 3 of me being a shift lead, and, I don't want the police to come out here. It's everything under the sun that can pop up. I would look at myself much more as a jack of all trades.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that you need to be very flexible to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Be ready for whatever challenge.
Be a good juggler.
There you go.
Lots of balls in the air.
So where do you see the business going? I have 2 questions. One is about where you're heading towards, which you did answer a little bit, but any other thoughts about where's the future for coffee and for Pinyon Coffee?
I'll let you start with that one.
More expansion. We're trying to get into more stores, especially in the Southwest, outside of New Mexico. We're always looking to expand our audience in Colorado, Arizona, Utah, California, Texas. Those are kind of the markets that we're really targeting hard in the next few years. We always are looking for new products to introduce. We've been working on a couple of really exciting cold brew projects for a while now that we're really looking forward to having something.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah. That'll be pretty awesome once we can get those finalized. Just continuing to grow and
so market and product development.
Yes.
Both sides of it.
Absolutely.
And then operationally, more stores or more.
Yeah, I think the footprint, especially outside of Albuquerque, is important to the brand. Again, New Mexico is in that name. We don't want to be metro area focused exclusively.
Right.
One of the things I know Drake and I both came from a background with Hastings, and Hastings had a marketing component where they tried to really drive smaller markets. And I think that that's something that, really worked well for them back in the heyday of brick and mortar. But I think in our state, that makes a lot of sense. If we can open up stores in smaller communities throughout the state, it further endears our brand to our customers' perceptions of us and being local. So I think that's one thing that's really going to be important to us as we continue to go down the road of
Well, I
expansion.
think people don't realize, but if we have 2 million people, about 1 million are here
Correct.
in Albuquerque, if you add in East Mountain, whatever. So it's the rule of thumb is half and half. The other half's rural.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, what's that look like? So you've got Farmington, Santa Fe. I don't want to miss anybody. They'll be calling in to you guys over here. But Las Cruces, Roswell, whatever. But so do you have coffee that you could sell coffee in those places because you're in New Mexico? Do you have to adapt anything to any communities? Like, is there a Santa Fe version of what you sell?
Not anymore. We used to have a whole line of what we called our New Mexico favorites that were all based around
Right.
specific locations. But as we kind of expanded our presence throughout the state and throughout the country, a lot of those flavors didn't really make sense on an overall kind of like
Because
overview.
you have a core brand that sells.
Exactly.
You don't have to really adapt that.
Yep.
So if you had to say each of you one thing about starting a business that was one lesson learned or something a tip you would give somebody to say, if you're going to start a business, make sure you know this. What would that one thing be? Maybe we'll start with you, Drake.
Oh man, that's a
How to
good
use
question.
Instagram.
Yeah, be diverse in your portfolio, but make sure that those diverse things all add into one cohesive unit.
Right.
Don't pinhole yourself into, well, I'm only going to be on Facebook and that's the only thing that I'm going to do, because you don't own that audience. Facebook does. So be flexible and go where the people are.
Which is kind of what I heard from you too, is that you need to be flexible and be adapting to whatever the new thing is. But anything else you'd add?
Do not be afraid to fail. The best lessons that I've learned in my life when it comes to entrepreneurial endeavors, sometimes you have to pick yourself up and start over. And the lessons that are learned from those times of trouble and challenge are the ones that are going to be the most important to propelling you as you move forward down the road.
That's where the lessons come.
Yeah.
And then if you're paying attention, if it happens again, you're
Well, I think that's stupidity. The definition is repeating the same things over and over again,
Right.
and expecting different results. So
right.
definitely
Very
definitely
good.
don't want to do that.
Well, pleasure meeting both of you today, Drake. And your story about New Mexico Piñon Coffee. I want to thank Moji Cinema for putting this together today. There'll be other shows to go forward with, but we'll all meet you later over at Pinyon Coffee. Which one?
I like it.
Which one shall we go to?
Oh, any of them. We'll take you to any one.
Okay, that's great. We'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining us.